good, man? It's Ty Dolla $ign. It's AGTV.
Hey, again, guys, go to It's AGTV on YouTube. That's the homie.
Guys over at Death Row, Suge and Tupac specifically, that gave us jurisdiction because that's where the conspiracy now starts. So the conspiracy to commit murder is now in LA, which gives us the rightful authority to look into it. It doesn't preclude Las Vegas from continuing in their murder investigation. It's not like we took it from them, or it's not like we could take it from them. It's their case. But it gave us authority to do it because if it's true that that conversation happened in LA, we now have jurisdictional right to look into it because it's a crime, a conspiracy to commit murder.
I know you and Randall Sullivan, how did you guys even get together? I know you had like some sort of a back and forth publicly. How did that even come about?
There was a podcast, I think it's called Slow Burn podcast that came out, and I got interviewed for the podcast. And then they said, hey, we'd like to do a live audience interview with you. And I was like, great. And they're like, hey, by the way, we're also going to invite Randall Sullivan. I said, no, whatever, it's your guys' show. I told them, though, I go, it'll be a shit show of a debate because it has to be really strongly monitored. Otherwise, it turns into what it turned into, which is basically just this back and forth, unsatisfying type of exchange of information. Right. So it wasn't well moderated. And nothing against the guy that was moderating it. I thought he was out of his element with that particular setting. But he's a great guy and just didn't really know what to expect, even though I told him it was going to be problematic.
Right.
It was great though. Randall Sullivan looked so stupid up there. Like he looked like he didn't know what he was talking about.
Well, that's because he doesn't. He really doesn't. If you read, somebody sent me an e-copy of the book he wrote recently, and it is so factually incorrect. I started to reach out to all these people that he quotes in his book, and they're reading it like, fuck that, I never said that. That isn't the truth. And so it's just so consistently incorrect that I really question his motives, because as a reporter you need to be more objective, and he's not. As a matter of fact, why would he make all these statements about me in the book without at least reaching out and saying, hey Greg, I have questions, these are some of the claims against you, what's your side of the story? Because that's what a good reporter does, right? Mm-hmm. But a good reporter needs to do that. If you're going to be fair and responsible, you need to give people an opportunity to respond to claims that other people are making.
Right. I love how you came with receipts and totally obliterated his ass.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, and the reason he doesn't reach out to you and other people probably is because he doesn't want, he knows he wants to believe what he wants to believe, and reaching out to you is going to take away from the little things he can put in his book. It's not that his book won't be as interesting.
Well, absolutely. If the theory about dirty cops, it's much more salacious. It's the public is more likely to gravitate towards that type of sensationalism and that type of story. But as a reporter, you should care about what's true, not what's sellable. But that's where we're at in the media these days.
And I wanted to ask one more thing back to Gene Deal, because this is one more thing I saw in his video today. And it was him, he was basically accusing you. He said, Greg Kading believes that Poochie all by himself committed this whole big conspiracy to kill Biggie at the Peterson. And just to clear that up, you have said before you don't know for sure, but you don't 100% also claim that Poochie did this all on his own, right?
No, all I've ever claimed was that Poochie was alone in the car in the Impala. Clearly, he's a lone shooter, but I've never closed my mind to the idea that there was multiple conspirators. Obviously, a female that was in the middle of the solicitation to commit the murder by Suge, and then Poochie. But as a matter of fact, I believe there were other people there that were assisting Poochie. I believe there was a lookout, but I'm not gonna go out there and make allegations against somebody without more proof.
Right.
Right.
Was Randall saying anything new that, because I know he was like a revised copy he released not too long ago. Was he saying anything new, or is it the same old theory?
No, so essentially all it is like the FBI cloned Russell Poole and had an agent that just ran with Poole's theory. And of course, the agency did the same thing the LAPD did to Russell Poole. They're like, listen, this is baseless. It's disprovable. So, quit promoting this theory that falsely accuses people. And that's why the FBI shut down that investigation. They looked into it, and they were convinced that Amir Mohammed, that there was no evidence to support the theory, and so they discarded it. And they told this agent, who seemed to have suffered from the same tunnel vision as Russell Poole, and so he got disgruntled, and now the whole world's involved in this conspiracy to cover up the murder, including his own agency. If you really take the time to look at how many people and many agencies and how many elements have to be involved for that theory to hold any water, it becomes immediately implausible. It's like the FBI is not going to go out of their way to cover up a murder for the LAPD. And, in fact, you can show a whole history where the FBI is happy to prosecute dirty cops, and including guys like David Mack. And so it's just, the theory it just isn't logical. And it's not plausible when you think about how many people are going to go out of their way to cover up a murder of some guy and risk their own reputations and careers and livelihoods to do it. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
They just prosecuted some LAPD cops and Lee Baca and all them. But yeah. I got a question about this the home surveillance video from the people from Houston, right? I heard Gene say something about that, like you see little bits and pieces of that. It's a 2-part question. Look, you see little bits and pieces. You see like where the video cuts on and off. Like from my understanding, I heard you in a prior interview say it, that in that video was confiscated from the people who recorded it. Correct?
Yeah. I don't know if confiscated is the right word. They just volunteered to give it to the LAPD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they take anything out of it once it was and like when they gave it back to him?
No, it's exactly how it appeared when they gave it to the LAPD. It was just the raw video footage. And what had happened was the person doing the actual filming, as soon as almost when the shots get fired, they instinctively react. Their reflexes are, and they hit the off button. And then he realized it was off, and he turned it back on. So,
yeah. I've heard Gene and people say that was. And the other part of my question was I've heard them say that that's FBI footage and all this, and that there's documentation that the FBI and proof that the FBI was following, and which we all know. But if you could just explain why the FBI stopped following them when they were in California. Yeah,
so the background is really not so much about the FBI specifically as it was about a task force that the task force had FBI agents in it, but also had guys from NYPD and guys from Teaneck, New Jersey. And they, Little C's and Biggie and those guys were kind of under indictment because of a raid that had happened at their house previously prior to coming to California, and some guns were confiscated and a bunch of weed, but of course those were different times. And so they were out here for several different reasons. A is they were trying to track down a murder suspect that they believed was affiliated with Bad Boy. And they thought he might be out here and part of their entourage. B, they wanted to see what kind of criminal misconduct might be taking place related to, the guns and the weed and everything that they found back in at Teaneck, at Biggie's house, right? Are you aware of that? This story?
I'm aware, when his house got raided and he got locked up, that famous mugshot of him.
Okay. Yeah, so anyways, it was all kind of related to that. Hey, are these guns or is the dope coming from California? Let's go out there and see. And they followed him around, and of course those guys weren't up to no good. They were up to just going out and promoting and doing videos and having a good time out here. So the guys that followed him out were like, all right, we're getting nowhere, so let's all go back home.
Gotcha.
I heard Gene say something like, he doesn't think Big was the initial target. It was maybe Puff or both of them. but I guess the shooter took his moment that he saw his moment that he saw it and killed Biggie and shot him.
Yeah, again, that's why I believe it was specifically. I believe that there was somebody assisting Poochie and saying, "Hey, it's the second SUV, right front seat. That's where he's at." And because otherwise, if it were Puff that was targeted, man, there was a perfect opportunity because he actually sits in the street for like 10 or 15 seconds, just sitting in the car, looking back over his shoulder. You've seen that on that Houston videotape where Puffy's just kind of posted up as they're waiting for Biggie's SUV to pull in behind him. And if he were the target, there was plenty of opportunity to right there just pull up while they're stopped and shoot Puffy. And of course, if you really look at the background of the conflict after what had happened in Atlanta with Jake Robles and Suge telling Puffy, like, you took something very dear from me, I'm going to take something very dear from you. And then, of course, on top of that, you have the rumors that came out that Biggie had been in Las Vegas and that Biggie had contracted the Crips to kill Tupac and Biggie had provided the gun. It was all bullshit, but that rumor was on the street. And so if that rumor's on the street and guys like Sugar believing that, you can see exactly why they would have targeted Biggie.
Right.
He says also, and I don't want to say his words wrong or anything, but from what I understand, a drive-by shooting is when somebody shoots somebody and drives, or shoots and drives off. But he claimed that's not a drive-by shooting, that the car was parked all night, at the corner or something. Do you know anything about that, or did y'all find anything out about the car being parked there all night at the corner?
No, there's nothing. No. How would he know that? How would he know the car's parked there all night? I mean, what a ridiculous claim. He was in the party.
Yeah, he claimed the car was parked at the corner all night, and there was cars all along the corner. I mean, I don't know, and he says that's not a drive-by.
Well, he almost claims as if the Impala didn't pull up next to it, that the Suburban pulled up next to the parked car, and then he shot and drove off. You know what I mean? But I think didn't the Impala actually pull down the street?
Well, as you can see, a good example is, cars would pull up to the sidewalk and wait. People would jump in or get out. They're just temporary parking there. You can't leave the car there. I mean, it's not a parking zone. Right. And so, just like when you look at the videotape from the people in Houston, you see cars coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. And in fact, that there was a blue Bentley that a lot of people misinterpreted. They thought was the Impala parked on the side of the road because it bears a very close resemblance to a SS Impala. And so what did he do? Did he go up and down the street and document all the cars that were there before the party? And then when he comes out, he's like, okay, look, all the same cars are here. I mean, how ridiculous.
Crazy.
He also, I've heard something, and I would like to know if this ever came up in your investigation, was that a rapper by the name of Yuckmouth says that he tried to attend the party, and that he saw an SUV, an Impala, go around the block, circling the block. Is that something that that you guys ever heard of?
No, he never provided that information to law enforcement, if that's what he's claiming. The only person that one of the other people in Biggie's entourage, I think it was, maybe was it G-Money? Can't remember, but one of them said they saw a black Impala going southbound on Fairfax just as they were pulling out. So, and if that's true, then the speculation would be that Impala did a U-turn and then came back. I don't believe it did because it wasn't black, it was green. But again, a green car can look black under those different lighting conditions. I think we all know that, vehicles, dark colored vehicles can appear black under, diminished light.
Right. I hope, with this interview it ends. I don't think it will, but people have a better understanding. But it seems that this will just go on, and Gene will use this as a way to profit and more attention.
Something I want to add just about, ending it is Gene in this most recent video he made, he said something along the lines of, the FBI doesn't have a dog in this fight, so basically believe what's in those documents. And if that's the route he wants to take, then he should also understand that the FBI shut down this ridiculous investigation, the conspiracy investigation, on 2 separate occasions. So that should tell him something right there, that basically him and a few stragglers are the only ones that still believe this. The mainstream, the police, they all know, basically after Greg's investigation, they all know what happened. And,
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, you make a great point, because it does seem inherently contradictory for him to say they don't have a dog in the fight, which they don't, but at the same time say they're involved in the cover-up of a murder. Well, clearly, if that's true, then they have a huge dog in the fight. So it doesn't make any sense. It's inconsistent thinking.
Right.
And do you know?
One more thing. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you know, I know the new FBI guy that came along after Russell Poole was, I think, going to write a book, or, he was doing all this stuff. Do you know if the FBI or anyone is still actively investigating this, or is it pretty much just kind of, they after your investigation, they all just kind of shut it down?
No, the FBI shut it down long before I even got involved. They shut it down back when the guy that you're talking about, Phil Carson, that's what I meant when I said that the FBI seemed to have just cloned Russell Poole, because they just have basically the same agent regurgitating what Poole was saying. But they shut it down because it was clearly a case where there was no evidence to prove what Agent Phil Carson was saying. And, if the guy, I would love to debate him, by the way. Get him on the phone, and we'll have a 5-hour-long debate, and I will destroy the premise of his theory. Phil Carson is the FBI agent, right?
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So the thing is that after that, when they closed that investigation, they gave him an opportunity to prove his case. He couldn't. They said, okay, we're closing it, because we're not going to just keep, chasing ghosts. And so that was long before I came along. There was no open FBI investigation other than the one I created when I federalized our task force, and I said, let's go outside of the LAPD and get all the different resources from different agencies to bear on this investigation. And then I had FBI agents working within our task force. There was originally a girl named Nicole Spencer, Special Agent Spencer, and then Special Agent Jeff Bennett, and then some other guys that were helping. And we had all that prior information that the FBI had chronicled from Phil Carson's investigation. So we had all that. And the FBI agents that were involved in my task force, they weren't doing anything but trying to find out exactly what happened like the rest of us were.
Right, and I love what you said to Randall Sullivan when he said that they only shut down Phil Carson because the LAPD was putting pressure on him to shut it down. And you said, does that sound like something that happens? The LAPD walks in and tells the FBI what to do. Right, doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, especially when Phil Carson's coming out of the public corruption unit. That's their job. So certainly they're not going to be swayed like, whoa, hold on, we don't want to piss any people off at the LAPD. It's like, give me a fucking break. Are you serious? I mean, it's utterly ridiculous.
Right.
When he says, and
by the way, I think it's kind of I think it's an important point is that, over at the FBI, of course, son of a gun, I lost my train of thought for a second. Ask me a question, I'll remember what I was going to say.
When he says, and I'm smart enough to know the answer to this, and I think it's just asinine for anybody to say this to anybody that investigated a case. Like you worked for the LAPD, your job was to investigate it. When he said that when he questioned that you weren't there, you, Greg Kading, weren't there, because I hear him say that a lot. He said that in his last video, that Greg Kading wasn't there, so how can he basically know? Like, what is your answer to all that? I mean, I know, I'm smart enough to know.
It's simple. Investigators are never there.
Exactly.
That's the whole point, is that we go out because we work there and have to go out and find out what people have to say and investigate the crime. So what is his suggestion that we'd all be better off if I were actually at the crime scene when the shooting happened? I mean, I don't get the. I'm not sure.
Some of them think you were. That's how crazy they are.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do. Some of them are crazy.
Yeah, there was. God darn it! There was something I wanted to comment on. Now I can't.
There was something about the FBI you were about to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that Gene never confronts the issue about Psycho Mike, and I believe. I'm not certain, but would you say if Psycho Mike, if there's no Psycho Mike, there's none of this? Like,
Okay, hold that question because now I just remembered what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the FBI, doing that investigation. There's, gosh darn it, Phil. What the current twist on this theory is that they were getting so close, and so they had to, put Phil Carson on ice. They had to bench him because he was going to figure out the truth, right? Okay.
Right.
So the reality is what happened was you've got a lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles, and FBI is doing their investigation to see if any of these claims that are, that the lawsuit's based on are true. Well, then what ends up happening is Phil Carson, the FBI agent, is now beginning to kind of collaborate with the attorneys of Biggie Smalls' estate and, having meetings with them and basically getting himself on their witness list. Well, that's not, with the FBI, you can't do that. You have to be impartial and you can't go and become part of somebody's lawsuit, essentially, and advocate for them. You have to conduct an impartial, neutral investigation. And so his supervisors were like, hey, listen, do your investigation, but your investigation is not here to augment this lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles. And as an FBI agent, you can't be civilly subpoenaed. So quit putting in yourself where you're going to be a witness in this case potentially, because it's against the protocols and the policies of the FBI. And so you have to look that up. It's a little bit, complicated, but this is part of the problem with that whole thing is that the FBI is like, listen, Phil, get out of bed with these people, do your investigation, but you can't be part of their witness list.
Right.
It's a conflict of interest for the FBI.
And I think you might have answered this before, on the subject of the Wallace attorneys, but a lot of people say that Amir Muhammad was never interviewed by the police, that no one ever went and talked to him. But he was actually, didn't he do a deposition or was interviewed by the Wallace attorneys at one point, and they were able to ask him basically whatever they wanted?
Yeah, and then shortly after that, they dropped him from the lawsuit, which is extremely important. Like, after they interviewed him, why does he get dismissed from the lawsuit if he's their prime suspect? It doesn't make any sense at all. Amir Muhammad, I've interviewed him, so, and, if you knew him and you ever spoke with him, you would just be, it's frustrating because somebody's innocent, and yet there's other people out there that are alleging that he's involved in this really, horrible, horrific crime. Anyways, to your question, yes, he was interviewed. He was very cordial. He came in. He wanted to talk to the FBI. He wanted to take a lie detector test. He wanted to, to clear his name. And so he went and he, did his thing with there were people from LAPD there. There were people from the lawsuit there. There were people from his own attorney was there. And then, of course, Perry Sanders and other members of Valletta's lawsuit.
Let me ask you, can you name who were Mrs. Valletta's lawyers for that lawsuit?
There were several. Perry Sanders was the primary one, and Frank's, I think, was it Frank's? I can't remember the other guy's name.
Hey, again, guys, go to It's AGTV on YouTube. That's the homie.
What's up? It's your #1 Coke Boy Chinks, and you're watching AGTV.